Hello, and welcome to my channel. Try this as a series breaking down a certain game or playstyle of a game. Today we're going to be talking Commander and breaking down Tasha, the Witch Queen. This video is broken down into chapters which you can find in the description or in the timeline. I'll be briefly covering Tasha, then break down some win conditions and how we'll get there. I'll talk about some mana base and card draw strategies. I'll discuss other synergistic cards in the deck and why I think they'll help. I'll cover some other cards I cut from my example list, why they didn't fit my list but they might fit yours. And finally, I'll be moving on to some budget suggestions for the deck. If you like this content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps other viewers discover the content I produce and is a great way to show support. With that said, let's dive in. Tasha is a Plainswalker commander that costs 3 blue-black and enters with 4 loyalty counters. She has a passive ability that reads, whenever you cast a spell you don't own, create a 3/3 black demon creature token. Her +1 ability reads, draw a card, and then for each opponent exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard and put a page counter on it. Her -3 ability reads, you may cast a spell from among cards in exile with page counters on them without paying its mana cost. Yes, more Plainswalker commanders. Saheeli was one of my favorite decks for a long time and I'm excited to be running another walker as a commander. Real quick, I think she provides some great synergy in the 99 of an Evelyn deck. Casting cards you don't own is kind of Evelyn's thing, and Tasha will give you some extra value with her ability. Today though, we're going to be talking about running Tasha as the commander. She's an efficient thief commander herself and can easily populate the board with demons throughout the game. Dimir is an effective color pair to steal cards from our opponents. There are several ways you could build her list, making her a flexible commander for efficient builds and budget builds alike. Typically in Thief decks would be running cards like Agent of Treachery or Control Magic, however we're going to be cutting them in favor of cards that let us cast our opponent's cards. Thief decks don't generally have a planned win condition. The goal, at least in my decks, is to steal our opponent's value and win conditions to both deny them those cards, and then assemble a win condition on the fly. I'm going to cover several cards later in the video that both achieve this goal while also playing into Tasha's token production. Just because we're assembling win conditions on the fly, doesn't mean we should abandon ways to win the game altogether. To help close out the game, I'm running Torment of Hailfire. This card is a reliable way to dump a bunch of mana in the endgame to either kill our opponents or crush their board state and hands. Starting out, I'm running my auto-includes in Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Thematic Compass. The compass flips into a Strictly Better Mazavith. It can also help us fetch lands in the early and mid game if we're getting screwed. To help them out, I'm running Commander Sphere and Mindstone, which can also draw us cards if we're mana flooded. Thran Dynamo and Fellwar Stone are also some solid mana rocks that can help advance our board state. Fellwar Stone is also nice because we can use the mana it produces to activate some of the abilities of cards we might steal throughout the game. I'm running Burnished Heart and Solemn Simulacrum as 2 creatures that can fetch us some basic lands. Solemn we can also use to protect our commander as a chump blocker to draw an extra card. Silvermere, Leaden Mirror, and Ornithopter of Paradise are 3 mana dorks that are cheap to get out to advance our board state early in the game. I'm also running Nykthos Shrine the Nyx as a potential boost to our mana base. Our devotion might be all over the place because of the thief effects we're running, but we should be able to reliably get blue or black from this card. Tasha has some built-in card draw with her +1 ability. We still get the card even if we don't exile anything, so this is a reliable way to keep our deck running if we're stalling out. To help her out, I'm running Underworld Connections, Phyrexian Arena, and Rhystic Study. All of these cards can reliably draw cards for us. Underworld Connections is a versatile card that can give us some card draw if we don't need the extra mana. Sire of Stagnation, War Room, and Jace's Archivist are also some reliable ways to draw cards. Sire of Stagnation continues to deny our opponent's value while we get more cards. It hurts ramp decks reliably and often discourages opponents from advancing their own board state. Also, Jace's Archivist will dump our opponent's hands into the graveyard, hopefully giving us some options to exile with Tasha's ability. Finally, we have Bident of Thassa and Baleful Strix. The Bident can force our opponents to swing out, potentially opening them up for some card draw and other combat damage triggers some of our creatures have. I'm running Spark Double in this deck, mainly to double up Tasha's passive ability. The added card draw is nice, or the ability to exile something with one Tasha and then cast it with the other. Spark Double is also a versatile card that allows us to double up our other thief creatures or even creatures or planeswalkers we steal. Lithoform Engine also lets us double up Tasha's abilities. Since her 2 loyalty abilities are a bit slow, doubling them up with the engine for added value makes it worth running in her list. We can also double up our other thief effects and spells we cast or steal. This is a very flexible card that has a great home in decks that need to assemble win conditions on the fly. I'm running a second Planeswalker in Ashiok Nightmare Muse and Flux Channeler that help proliferate it in our commander. Ashiok will continue to deny our opponent's value while also eventually allowing us to cast spells in exile to synergize with our commander. Again, we're going to be focusing on Tasha's passive ability and adding cards that allow us to cast our opponent's cards. Nightvale Spectre, Thief of Sanity, and Mind Flayer the Shadow are all cards that let us tuck away our opponent's cards into exile and then cast them later on in the game. Xanathar, Karoo Mind Eater, and Gonti Lord of Luxury have similar effects. Though Xanathar doesn't tuck cards away to cast later, we can still get plenty of value from our opponents or shut them down from casting spells if we think they're going to stop us on our turn. Fallen Shinobi, Mind Leech Mass, and Silent Blade Oni will allow us to cast spells for free. The Shinobi and Oni have the added ability of ninjutsu to surprise our opponents and help ensure we get some value. Cunning Rhetoric, King Nefari's Betrayal, and Rogue Class are some solid enchantments that fit with our strategy. Cunning Rhetoric will not only synergize with our deck, but also discourages our opponents from attacking us or Tasha. Rogue's Class gives all of our creatures thief effects. It takes a bit more of an investment to enable. Even if you don't use it to steal cards, it could deny a ton of value from our opponents. Praetor's Grasp and Opposition Agent are 2 cards that will let us search our opponent's library for things to steal. Praetor's Grasp is a great card if we're familiar with our opponent's strategy. We can steal their combo pieces and hold them in exile, or just find something else to advance our own board state. To wrap it up, I'm running Chaos Wand and Mind's Dilation. I've always thought the wand was a fun card to run, even if it's an expensive ability. It actually synergizes really well with Tasha. Since the spell we cast goes into the graveyard, we can actually follow up the wand's effect with Tasha's +1 ability to tuck it into exile and then cast it again later. Mind's Dilation is not only a great card to assemble a board state on its own, but it casts the cards it steals, playing into Tasha's passive ability. The cutting room floor is where I talk about some cards around or over $10 at the time of recording that I cut from my list for various reasons but are worth mentioning the run. Though these cards didn't find a home in my list, they might find a home in yours. Starting off is Bitter Blossom. This card I like running in decks that I need blockers for. Making flying 1/1s every turn is a solid way to protect planeswalkers. Though I don't have a lot of flyers in this deck, I do have 24 creatures on top of the creatures we steal and the tokens Tasha provides. I didn't think it was needed, and I opted to add more thief effects in this deck. Next we have Sheoldred Whispering One. I'm not running too many recursion effects, so I considered running Sheoldred for that reason. She's a bit overkill for that effect, as she also controls our opponent's board presence on top of the recursion. I didn't think she really played into the theme of the deck, so I cut her for that reason. Next is Sphinx Ambassador. This is a solid thief card that fits well with what our deck is trying to do. However, it doesn't synergize with Tasha's passive ability. I wanted to focus on Tasha for this deck, playing into her abilities and the thief theme. I cut this card and many other effects like it for this reason. However, if you want to make a more efficient thief deck, then I'd recommend this card. For some added ramp, I recommend some more Mana Dorks in Hedron Crawler and Palladium Mirror, also Wayfarer's Bauble to fetch a basic. Both creatures are solid cards if you feel like you need more mana in your deck. Phyrexian Reclamation is a solid budget card for added recursion. I wasn't really focusing on reanimation for my deck, so I decided not to run it. Regardless, it is cheap and reliable if you feel like you need some more recursion in your list. Mnemonic Betrayal is a cheap card that lets us cast anything in our opponent's graveyard. Unfortunately, it is only until end of turn. Your mileage may vary with this card, but for me, I think you need a ton of mana to really take advantage of it. However, between 3 opponents, you'd probably find some good targets for this spell. Agent of Treachery, Acquire, and Control Magic are some thief effects I cut from my deck because they didn't really synergize with Tasha. There are actually a ton of cards like these. Dimir is really good at stealing cards, and I'm not going to cover all the different options that are out there. Check into the description below for a link to the Dimir EDH rec page if you're interested for more options that fit this theme. Finally is Curse of Unbinding. Not only can this steal creatures for us, but it can mill our opponents. Since Tasha exiles instant and sorceries from graveyards, this could provide her with plenty of value. Unfortunately, it only mills one opponent, and we don't really have a way to shuffle the curse around like Lynn does. I don't normally break down budget lands or other mana rocks. There are so many, and honestly the options are just endless. With a little bit of looking around, you can find whatever suits your needs and preferences. I always shout out managathering.com for this reason, as it has an organized list of lands and rocks that are easy to navigate. It is also an incredible resource when building in colors you are not really familiar with. I didn't cover every card in this deck or every suggestion I have for Tasha, so if you'd like to see the rest, check out the link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Comment below on cards you think synergize well with this commander, and if you have any suggestions for commanders to build in the future. Thank you so much for watching, good luck, and have fun.